Can I just call you Eagle?
Yes. Here we go. Hello and welcome. What an awkward start. Here we go. This is the way it usually goes. Hello, I'm Eagle, Eagle Gardens 1 on Instagram. And this is fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 638. Hopefully you guys are doing well this Friday evening. I've got a great night for us ahead. The Fit Growing Goddess is here with me this evening. You want to tell us how you're doing this evening and where they can find you?
I'm doing really good. You can find me on Instagram at Fit Growing Goddess. It's been a long day. I'm excited to smoke and talk some shit.
Me too. I'm gonna smoke a little bit of Colombian. Take a deep breath now that we went live there. It was such a laggy there. We had like 2 minutes before it kind of snuck
felt a little
up there.
awkward sitting there, kind of like, oh, I hear the Jeopardy song playing in the background, waiting to start.
Right. So, what did you bring to smoke? We might as well start there.
I don't know if you can see that. A little bit smaller nugs, little birthday gift I got from some good friends. I want to say this is garlic icing, and then I have a bit of hash.
2 minutes before.
Say again.
Oh, it was the YouTube come flying through there. I couldn't pause it before. Sorry.
Dopey.
Full of mistakes this evening.
It's okay. This is my first rodeo, so I wouldn't know.
Seemingly mine too. Oh, God. All right. I think I've got all the boxes checked once again. All right. So, again, thank you for joining me this evening, even with all the mistakes.
Thank you for having me. No, really. You can't even tell. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
So we start this off usually with basically, when did cannabis enter your life? When was the first time you used or seen cannabis?
Some people are kind of surprised to find this out, but I actually didn't start consuming cannabis until I was almost 25. I kind of grew up in a really sheltered life, and I was taught drugs are bad. Okay, drugs are bad. Okay, I'm just kidding. But I just saw it as, I didn't know what it was, and I just knew it was something to be afraid of. And then I had my son at 24, and with all the hormones that come with kids came some like I guess postpartum depression a little bit, some baby blues. And I had a really good friend whose aunt baked homemade cookies with like canna butter, and she had me try one, and I felt so good, and I was like, okay, I like this a lot. I feel happy, I feel relaxed, I don't feel as stressed, I miss my kid. Okay. And the next time we hung out, she had a bowl and some weed, and I was like, okay, just what is it? What's weed? Which part is the weed? And I guess it kind of went from there. And about a year later, I was trying to get a job at a dispensary. I was trying to leave my job as a teacher. I was part-time. It was more like a teacher's aide. I was in my son's school, and I wanted to grow, and I wanted to just be around cannabis more because I was consuming more and feeling better. And it was around the same time I was losing a bunch of weight, because before I started smoking cannabis, I was like 170 pounds about. And I just had like an unhealthy lifestyle my whole life. And then, I don't know, I would smoke and I would have all this energy. I would feel really happy. I would feel really like, yeah, okay, this is great. Like, what do you want to do? You want to go for a walk? You want to go outside? I wanted to move. And started having this little like glass chillum, those OG chillums, those little glass ones where you can only pack in like as much as your pinky nail. I'd pack that in, and I'd hit that in my car, and I'd go in the gym, and I'd have like a 2-hour workout. and it would feel so good. And at the time I was mentally in a good place and eating well and balancing my lifestyle. And I just thought, man, I had this all wrong. I had this plan all wrong. And then it became, okay, how can I get more involved with it? What does this plan do? And then once I started working in a dispensary about a year later, I dove headfirst into everything I could in the cannabis industry, any information I could find on from growing to consuming, legal limits for purchasing, ingredients, your endocannabinoid system in your body, what products I could recommend to help people in their needs, learning about terpene profiles and figuring out, okay, you've got gastro issues, we need some myrcene terpene, or if you're feeling really stressed out, I know I like myrcene terpene dominant strains, so that's one I'm going to bring up a lot probably. But yeah, it just kind of went from there, and since then I have started growing. Once I was in the dispensary, oh, I got bag of seeds. That's how I started growing. We got a bunch of questionable stuff. Like, remember, this was 2017, so the legal weed was still pretty new, and what we got wasn't always what it was supposed to be. I know it sounds kind of bad, but that's just kind of how it was. So we got something that said Northern Lights, but it didn't look or smell like Northern Lights at all. But it was seeded. It was heavily seeded. So we had like no people coming in for a while, and I asked my boss. I was like, "Hey, can I take those seeds?" And he's like, "Why? They're just gonna seed again." I was like, "Well, what do you care? I'm nobody. I'm nothing. Can I have them?" Okay. So I sat there for about an hour picking out all the seeds of this bud, and took them home, put them in a paper towel, put them in a Tupperware, let them sprout. And I had like 13 sprouts, but I only grew one my first round, and that was it. That's pretty much what catalysted me to keep growing, because my whole perception changed the first summer I started smoking weed. My whole perception. I thought I had life figured out at 18. I really did. And at 24, I felt like my eyes were being opened for the first time. Oh yeah, I'm gonna
It's
hit this
kind of,
button.
please do. It's pretty awesome. So it's not too often that I hear people find the medical side of cannabis right off the bat. I mean, most of the time, people find it a little bit earlier in life, and it's
Yeah.
recreational, and then at some point, maybe they realize, it has some medicinal value. But it's good to hear that you find it medicinable right off the bat.
Very.
It wasn't just recreation.
No, the recreational came a little bit later. The more I enjoyed it, I didn't. I think my first dab was what I would consider my first real recreational experience with weed, because I hadn't gotten high to that point, like when I took my first dab. And uh, yeah, that's pretty much my whole purpose and intention with growing it now. I love to consume as much of the plant as I can, from like the raw cannabis leaves, whether it's in smoothies or juices, to my actual herbs, dried or fresh. I've started making like it's not fermented plant juice. It's just all the fresh leaves mixed with water. And I let that sit for about a week and stir it up. And I get this really nice tea from it, this really nice extract from letting it sit. And I've been giving that to my plants for a couple weeks now. I saw that from, I think his IG is at Original Dankster. He had posted a few times, and his crops are insane. Yeah. The simpler, the better is what I've been trying to get to lately. Not just organic, but sustainable, regenerative, and what I thought I knew, I don't know. I'm learning, and I would love to expand all that knowledge, and I'll keep expanding. But with time, I'm in no rush. No rush at all.
That's good because the organic hole is deep. uh,
Mm,
I've been growing for quite some time, and when I was using soil in the first few years there before I switched into cocoa, it was more use it and dispose of it. And now
right.
later, much later in my grow career, I'm just taking it more seriously and you know trying to reuse, understand more scientifically what's going on in the soil.
Yes, I am too, very much. And it seems like no matter how much I read, there's always more to learn. And no matter how much I learn, I still question if I'm really doing it right. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just looking for a lighter that works. Little unprepared.
It happens. It happens. No worries.
And then I'm trying to keep quiet because I have both my boys sleeping. Full-time mom and homeschooling mom as well as a grower. So that's always on the plate. And I'm trying to get my kids involved with that too. That's been something totally different and uh, not just my immediate family dynamics, but the dynamics with my dad and my mom and their stance on it and what my son says around them, how it was at first because they were really against any cannabis use whatsoever. And now they see pictures of my plants. They'll hear my son talk about, oh, mom's got some beauties right now, or mom had to kill a male. I don't like when she kills the males. And that's been, I never thought I'd be hearing my son say stuff like that to my dad ever. So that's a whole new whirlwind.
It always warms my heart to hear people, change sides or change perspectives on cannabis. For so long it has been demonized, and it's kind of sad that it took a pandemic to kind of really, really bring out or shine a good light on cannabis. Uh,
Yeah. Well, some good had to come out from that pandemic. I agree, though. I agree. It's not always because I still have plenty of family members that are dismissive. We'll just say, to be objective, they're very dismissive of cannabis, no matter what their substance of choice is.
So as you kind of decided to smoke there, I believe I heard you say you kind of decided to be a bud tender there. Did
Yeah.
through that process, did you, finding more people that smoke cannabis and use cannabis make you feel a little bit better, obviously, about your decision to use cannabis as a medicine or just recreationally?
Definitely. And even beyond that, it gave me a purpose, a real purpose, because, you'd have everybody from, you know, um, I don't know, Tom, who wants an eighth, to Jerry, who wants an ounce, to, I don't know, Greg needs a specific kind of medicine because he read online that White Widow was good for seizures and he wants to make an extraction for his uncle who has seizures. So then, as a bud tender, I'm not doing my job if I'm not hopping online and helping him through this with at least my assistive knowledge. I'm not a medical professional, but I can at least tell him, hey, you need at least 3 ounces, not an eighth. Things, the small things like that, and feeling relieved and happy, and like I said, like I'm doing something so much bigger than myself by just kind of guiding someone in the right direction if they want to make their own or do their own process of extraction, because that was what I found most memorable about being a bud tender, was when people came in and they said, I want to make my own RSO, or I want to make my own, what do they call it? Gorilla. The Gorilla is the other one. Gorilla oil extraction. It's not exactly Rick Simpson's method. It's slightly different. Or people coming in and genuinely wanting to know about CBD and having to explain to them that most of what's available isn't going to help them unless they buy it in big bulk. That they need something, 1,000 milligrams and up. This stuff that's 20 milligrams and 25 milligrams and even 100 milligrams doesn't benefit you to the point that a much higher milligram was, because from what I've read with CBD, your ratio should be about 5 milligrams of CBD, 3 to 5 milligrams of CBD per every pound you weigh, depending on what you're trying to treat. So when people come in and they're trying to treat cancer and they're trying to buy a 100 milligram bottle of a CBD, and it's CBD hemp, not CBD or cannabis sativa, it was a weird position to be in as a bud tender. But those were the moments that were most memorable, and that's, I think, what I keep coming back to, is making my own extractions, making my own oil, growing my own bud, doing everything, learning a lot, just learning a lot. I don't know anything yet, but I'm trying to.
It had to be kind of nice to start there, as you had people asking you and you didn't have answers. I'm sure
Oh yeah, plenty of
you
time.
just wanted to go home and kind of dig into some of the things you were being answered or asked during the day. Excuse me.
Yeah, spend the 30 minutes with them one-on-one.
So what were some of the stuff you...
I lost you for a minute.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay. I'm sorry.
Don't be. Last thing I heard was, so what was...
Oh, I was going to ask, what were some of the things that really raised an eyebrow that you dove into from your journey there?
Most most of the things that raised my eyebrows were things that were behind closed doors. This how many rules were broken, how many laws were broken, but at the same time, it didn't quite seem wrong. It almost seemed like the state really wasn't in favor of the patient. So ways that we would get around things to help patients, it made sense. Raise eyebrows because, you're taught to follow rules in school. Again, this is how cannabis helped open my eyes. Things are not so black and white. Everything requires conscious thought and effort. Maybe not everything, but when you're dealing with your job, yeah, you should have a lot of conscious thought and effort into that. And just like there would be times like patients would come up from out of state, and this was early rec days. So this was before rec days. This was still in Michigan. It was med card only. And this was in 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. And having people come up and them having multiple patients that are immobile, out of state, with proof of that, having their cards, and he as their registered caregiver, meaning he can purchase for all of them, but having a law like a single person cannot leave with more than 2.5 ounces of flower in hand. They cannot leave the door without it. So having a person, even if it's not for him and it's for his patients, that was still the law. So having to, make exceptions and work around things like that was always interesting. Or seeing seeing how much weed could come in at a time, seeing the pounds of weed pounds of weed that could come in, pounds of wax that could come in, having meeting all the producers of this stuff and the pride they took in their work, some more than others. And seeing the demand for it, seeing the community build around different brands, different people that you actually see bringing in their stuff and having people say, I want that. I saw like a big thing for us for a long time was a strain called Skittles. And I don't think there was ever a day that went by where someone didn't ask for that I worked, whether it was an 8 or a quarter, or if someone had the dough, you know, they shoveled out the $400 for the ounce. More power to them. It was good. It was very good. It was very good. Good time. And then I worked with all women there too. We didn't work with men. It was all women. And for the majority, we were very tight. Looked out for one another. Everybody knew each other. Everybody kind of knew everybody. Everybody kind of had their thing that they knew. We had a girl that she knew every edible like the back of her hand, just about every ingredient, dosage, flavors, everything, every single one. And we had a lot. We were a huge, the selection that we had, it was like a Quickie Mart of our 7-Eleven. That was originally how it was set up before our laws changed and everything had to be behind the counter, because originally our laws didn't require that in the dispensary. So you could grab a little shopping cart and walk up to this, say, yep, I'm gonna get that and throw that in the cart and walk over here and say, I'm gonna get these edibles. There was a discount cart, there was a big cooler with a bunch of Kool-Aids, a bunch of drinks. And the best part was before that, there were always like little concessions too. So like you'd come in and there'd be munchies waiting there for you, that you could grab a little something, put it in your pocket and have it for later, whatever it was. And it was usually not healthy. So like Hostess and Frito-Lay brand items, Little Debbie items. But everybody loves that stuff when they're high. So yeah, I loved it. And I took pride in it. I did, because I learned a lot fast about strains, what was good to smoke, what wasn't, and how to help people figure out what they liked. There's a lot of people would come in and they'd be like, I don't know what to ask. I'm like, well, what do you like? And they're like, what do you mean? What do I like? I like to get high. Okay, when you break something up, what texture do you like? When you know you're going to get high, do you like it really sticky? Do you want it dried out? How do you want it to stick together? Do you want your grinder to get a little stuck when you're tearing it up, or you want to feel the resin on your hands, or do you like it dry? Things like that. It was like making a connection with someone and saying, let me help you pick this out. And I felt like I wasn't bad at it. Thought I was okay. I liked it. I like growing a lot more, I will say. The stress of being in the dispensary, the responsibility. And at the time that I worked, there were no half shifts. So you came in at 9 and you left at 9, period. But no ifs, ands, or buts. And if you couldn't do that, you just didn't work that day. And I did very well for myself there. I was able to pay my mortgage, took a lot of pride in that. It was good. Wasn't forever, but it was good. Grateful for the experience there.
For some reason, when you said stressful, I was surprised. I think most people, when they think about the cannabis careers of they think, oh yes, that's the life, you know what I mean? And sometimes the grass isn't greener on the other side of the fence. So what made it so stressful, I guess?
So maybe it is a little bit more now, but back then when it was med, it was a lot harder to get. And whenever there were specials, which was weekly, we would be busy. Our busiest day was always Sunday, because we would run a special 4-gram 8s. You get an extra half gram. And yet there would still consistently be a 15-minute wait almost the whole day. So imagine having to get the best version of yourself, Hi, what are we looking for today? Okay, great. Let's check it out. Edibles, carts, and you do that 200 times, okay? And let's say at least 5% of those people are having a really bad day and they take it out on you. And let's say another 5% of those people look at you and go, do you even smoke weed? And I'm waiting for someone else. Okay, I'm gonna help you. Did you see that person cut? I did not. Can I help you get something? They cut. Can I help you right now? And that's the nice end of it. I never even had someone yell in my face. I saw girls crying in the back room because gentlemen took their issues out on these girls with name calling and insults over whatever their shortcomings were. That was stressful. Or just having the pressure of messing up. There were times I am embarrassed to admit this, but there were times where I forgot to put things in people's bags. So they get home and something's not there. Oh, Ashley, you screwed up. And then there's the reprimanding and consequences of that. So then it's always on your A game. But at the same time, you've got, your bosses who say, hey, we've got this new stuff. Try it. Go out and try it. Tell me if it's good. Tell me if it's good. Then you're high and you're at work. And don't forget, stay focused. It's interesting. It's interesting. I guess that's the majority of the stress. But the rest of the time, when people come in, when they're like, Ashley, or they see you and they're like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. Because they like what you like, you gave them a good recommendation, they vibed with you last time. Oh, best moments. Or even better, when someone would leave a review about you and actually, give you some credit. Top notch. Kindness like that goes a long way for bud tenders. Yes, it does. I'd say 80-20. 80-20 in being a bud tender. But it's a great job. Highly recommended.
So again, it would, from not being around cannabis and going into that market, it would be pretty eye-opening just to, from not smoking it to going into something like that, it's pretty eye-opening to know how many cannabis strains there really are, and the different types and how they affect.
Yeah, I spent
That
a lot
had
of
to
time on
be.
Seed Finder.
So at that point, did you become like a kid in the candy store? It's what you try.
Oh, every night, every shift, every night, every shift, because one of the reasons we were so busy was because of our variety, and we prided ourselves on having at least 30 strains at a time, minimum. So imagine coming into this dispensary and you just see like a row of 10 glass jars, nice and full of pretty bud, mediocre bud, maybe one or two questions. But for the most part, gorgeous bud. And there are 3 sections of this. And even though it's the same, it makes it look like a Wonka's wonderland of weed. It really does, especially when the dispensary is decorated with bong. I wanted to buy bongs or trays, or trying to save money when you're constantly surrounded by so much useful merchandise, fun merchandise, and then it makes it easier to sell when you have it, which just makes you a better employee when you can make better recommendations. It's a cycle, but I definitely would get some sort of flower after every shift. And I had my favorites for a while. You know, there would be times where I wouldn't sway from something, no matter what it was, no matter. We had rankings by shelf. So $8 shelf, $10 shelf, $15 shelf, and the $20 shelf. And so it wouldn't matter what shelf it was on. Sometimes it would be the, 20 to 15 to 10. Sometimes something really good would sneak onto the $8 shelf. And it would kind of be one of those things where none of us behind the counter would kind of believe it. Would be like, is this right? Did he have his glasses on when he priced this? Is this right? Yeah. Okay. This is right. And so we'd all, get our whatever it was, our dosage, and we were able to have like what do you call it? Like a bag for the end of the night, because that way the registers could be closed down at the right time or something. I don't know. But it was very convenient, that's for sure. But honestly, not as convenient as growing it like this. I like being able to grow so many strains, and I like that I don't have to question the bud when I light it, or question when I smell it, or see sparks. Lots of sparks fly when it's lit or burning in the bowl. I've come across a lot of things trying varieties. Some good, some bad. Even a few strains that were, I don't know, just the high itself was really off. Interesting, to say the least.
So yeah, it can be a little scary what has been passed off as medicine is sparkly shit like that. I've seen some pretty crappy
Right?
grown cannabis, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
You can tell when people are just about their bottom dollar and their yields. It's numbers to them. That's all it is. It's numbers to them. And you can tell when it's craft or someone's learning and there's appreciation in the plan. Even the middle, where it is about the numbers, and it's still about the craft. People that can really produce like that. It's cool to see so many people in the industry online doing that, and it doesn't need to be in a Mylar bag to be beyond amazing. Beyond.
I think we lost something there when we stepped forward in time a little bit with regulations and we took those jars away from the patients. I remember the days of the jars myself. And
Yep.
you don't get me wrong, I used to giggle and be in delight when I'd walk into any place with 30 jars. And I would
Right.
always take my time and smell
Yep.
each one. But I think
Yeah,
that's the beauty of it all is,
it
there's
is.
always that one that you go back to that, even if
Yep.
you hit all 30, there's that one that you're like, oh, that one back there, that's
Yep.
that's the shit.
So we had one
And
that was like that. It was called Agent Tangy. We had this amazing caregiver. He had a mom of that he just honed in on, and that was just all he grew. And I would say 2/3 of our patients, if they couldn't find something new, that was always the solid one. That was always cleanest, the best flavor, the best nug size, most uniform, beautiful color, great orange hairs, and it really smelled like orange. It was great. So you're right. So yeah, you got to smell them all, but that one that's kind of classic, that one's always there. Agent Tangy.
well, I believe that it's a good way for the patients to identify their medicine as well. And I just don't think that transfers or correlates directly into some of the percentages that they put forth nowadays for patients. It
No,
just doesn't transfer into what the nose told you before. This is my medicine.
I agree. I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I did have a brief opportunity to work in some commercial sized spaces. I didn't work for a commercial space, just in some really, really big operations that were managed with current culture. 50-gallon tanks, massive rooms, massive plants, massive default days, trellis days, harvest days, and majority of the time everything looked amazing and usually smelled okay, but it was just about the numbers and keeping everything nice and clean, keeping everything organized in the rooms. And I still didn't even touch, like, I touched the tip of the iceberg in helping care for those rooms, so I don't even know. And working in smaller rooms where the basement grows, oh, they smell so different. You can really smell the difference in the strains, and maybe not even basements, build outs, pole barns, wherever they are, bedrooms, whatever, closets, tents. You can tell when the priority is the cannabis and when the priority is the environment. What do you think? No? Maybe? I'm a little high.
Oh, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. 100%. Same goes with the people I call. There's the industry people, and then there's the community people. The community people are the ones that actually care about their flower and will let you smell, try it. I mean, they would practically, you won't even take your money there. Here, just go try it. And if you
Yeah.
like it, come back. And then there's the industry people that don't even really want you to open their jar, and they're standing at the end of their counter table checking their watch every 5 minutes. They really don't even give a shit. It's an inconvenience for them to be.
Yeah.
So it shows in their grow environments as well. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. I'm glad I got to have the experience nonetheless. It was always a lot of hard work, regardless whether you're doing it that size or whether you're doing it in a basement or a tent, whether it's a 2,000 square foot space or a 100 square foot space or a 20 square foot space. It's work. And 20 is no comparison to 2,000, but just having the little experience that I did in the 2,000 square foot space was just like, wow, this is, again, being a part of something so much bigger than myself. The amount of people that depend on this, the amount of people that it takes to keep an operation like that running smoothly and cohesively, keeping everything happy and healthy. Good experience on any level. So still liked it, but I feel so much more fulfilled doing it for myself, because I feel like when I was doing it close to a commercial level or just at a bigger level, I felt like all of my energy went to those gardens, and I wanted it to. I wanted to help so bad, and I don't know. It got to a point where I realized I lost my balance in life, and I had just had a baby, and my grow, I was falling behind. I was really just leaving myself last, which was my own doing. And now that it's been a year and a couple months since having my son, getting back to doing things for myself at my level feels so much better, and not getting paid the same, which is the bummer. It's given me the opportunity to still implement all the structure I learned in that commercial, because that takes a lot of structure to run an operation that big, a lot of structure. and a lot of goal setting and a lot of discipline. And I got to take that and bring it home into my growth now. And I feel like I'm doing all right. I'm sticking to it and sticking to things that I might have procrastinated on a year or two ago, or even before that. Growing, like that's my whole name. Growing goddess isn't because I'm a goddess at growing plants. It's because I'm committed to growing in all aspects of myself, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically. Uh, growing my kids, nurturing my kids. Uh, that's that's where I want to be at. So whatever level it takes me to, whether it's in a commercial space or a bigger space or at home or out with another farm, anywhere, I want to keep growing. I want to keep growing.
What an awesome attitude. I agree 100%. You know, the cultivation side of things, I say almost nightly, has the most, has every bit of impact, if not more so, than I'm a huge medical advocate side of things. You know, I understand that it is recreational, but I think at the end of the day, it boils down to there's still, admittedly or not, kind of using it, you know, on a medical level there, even if it to be relaxed, you know, get away from
Oh, for
stress,
sure.
whatever. Uh, but
Absolutely. We
I do
have an
believe that the
endocannabinoid
cultivation
system.
side of things, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead. Rude.
I just mean like our endocannabinoid system inside of
But
it, we produce. Oh, we're on delay. I'm sorry. I don't think I can hear you. I see your lips moving. I don't hear anything.
sorry about that, man. That delay is a little bad tonight. Uh,
It's Friday the 13th.
I keep trying to forget that for some reason.
Oh, well, my mom reminded me earlier today while I was driving. I called to tell her, Mom, I slipped and I fell in front of someone's house. And she's like, well, it's Friday the 13th. I was like, you're right. It is. It is. Good day.
But cannabis does make you grow as a person quite a bit. You know, it goes so different than the norm that when we were growing up, that we heard the typical bullshit that, you know, you'll never be anything. Cannabis is going to ruin your life. I've never seen that. I've never necessarily seen anybody in cannabis that was seriously in cannabis to be lazy. I mean, everybody I've seen in cannabis, it's quite the opposite. They're more running on the little sleep, burning both ends of the candles to make sure everything's done. And, you know,
Yeah, it's hard to find a balance. I feel that it, unless you get a lot of things automated, but then again, then we talked about when everything gets automated and everything gets really industrialized, everything becomes about the environment, and you're really not as dialed into the craft. Or maybe you are, maybe that allows for you to be more dialed in. I'm just being objective at this point, not trying to contradict myself. Just I could see both sides of it. It's still, I mean, even myself, I would like to be automated on my watering. It's definitely a goal I'm working on. Mm.
so it sounded like growing on a little bit larger scale was prior to growing for yourself.
No, it was simultaneously. So first it started, I was growing for myself. Yeah, actually, so my introduction to growing for someone else, I ended up being helping out some other grows. Just it started off not even with their actual grow. I just started helping with trimming on harvest day, and eventually worked my way into helping on cleaning day. And then eventually I was allowed to, see what it was like to treat the res and how to pH and get your EC right for the res. And that was really cool, learning all that. But uh, at the time, I was trying to learn as much about soil as I could because I really liked soil. I had been growing in soil since 2016, and I started helping on a larger scale in 2019. 2019. So I'd already been growing for myself for 3 years, and very small scale, just a 4x4 tent, and I had just started growing in my 10x11 room, just barely. I had one hand-me-down 1,000-watt HPS. What was the brand? I don't even remember the brand, but it was hand-me-down. The glass wasn't there anymore. I remember going to get new bulbs for it and a new ballast for it because the old one was like 1,000 pounds. It was nothing like the ballast. Now I had never seen a ballast. It was just this huge ass hunk of metal with this big handle, and it just had this little flippy switch, and I could barely pick that thing up at the time. And so I went and got a new ballast and learned a lot about wattage and electricity that day, and making sure I had enough power to that wall. It was great learning experience because I didn't have any help, and I was too scared to ask for any help from anyone else online at the time because I don't know. I get in my head about the messaging people sometimes. So I just was like, I do this myself, and I figured it out. And I had gotten help from someone in the community who was growing at a larger scale, who had seen that I had a lot of space that was not producing anything really because it just wasn't ideally set up. I think I still have some old pictures in my profile of this big ass room with this little light, and it's so dim, and it could have been so much more optimal. And they helped me out, and I got 4 new lights, got a bunch of new plants, started helping out with some other grows, took in some clones, and made the first mistake of not giving them a bath. I just thought, oh my God, I've got clones. I'm going to put these in soil. I'm going to put these right in my tent. Biggest mistake and best lesson I ever learned because they had russet mites.
Always a tough lesson. Always a tough lesson. And I think everybody says the same thing after that. Never, never again.
Oh yeah, that was a rough one because I had gotten my plants to the biggest size I had ever gotten them. Was really getting good techniques at high stress training, super cropping them, and everything was just going really well. And have you ever had russets or had anybody deal with russets?
I definitely know people that have dealt with them. I've had regular mites, but not the russet mites. They're quite the battle.
There is no battle. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a little high,
Jesus,
but
there is no battle.
I tried. I battled with them for a good I think it was 4 weeks when I finally gave up because the stress my plants had taken on at that point, the money I was spending in trying to get rid of them. They had already burrowed into every single stalk, very deep, every single one of them, and slowly just shriveled, just as the weeks were going by, no little to no bud. Seeing these massive plants just shriveled and brown and nothing. I tried to take them to the end of their cycle and ended up throwing just about everything away. Burned so much stuff. Did a heat burn with my lights in the room, and then did both attain and what was it, pyrithium, to make sure that they were gone, and had to start everything over. And just after that, I became really leery of clones in general because, you know, you just never know. You just never know. So everything right now for me is from seed. I like to start from seed anyway. I like the process. I like the journey. I like the end result too. I get the clones, get you there faster. Just like the journey.
Most certainly, narrowing it down to that one is always fun,
Yeah.
and sometimes hectic, because you know when you pop in that pack of seeds and you actually get that, you know, maybe if you're lucky 5 females or whatever, you never know which one to go with. So you know, few rounds you're taking multiple cuts of each, so you
Right?
have a few floating around before you make your final decision. Things can get a little hectic, a little cramped sometimes before that
Yeah.
final selection is made.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Things were getting really tight in my room just a couple days ago. Then put 3 of them outside, and then put all my veggies outside, and all my littles, and get ready to flip them into flower now. Finally.
So, do you grow cannabis outdoors as well, or strictly indoors?
Yes. I like growing it outside because it's, now that I've done it a few times, I'm more aware of how to manage it, especially in Michigan. We get really, really wet right after September, middle to September and on. It's really easy to get mold, really easy. And October is the best month to harvest here in the state, in my opinion, as far as depending on what you're running, I guess. Um, so I've definitely lost a few plants to mold outside and bud rot. The last 2, I made sure to be on top of my IPM schedule, which was still pretty minimal. Citric acid, neem tonic. I really like Mountain Organic Botanicals. They have a great tonic line that's, I can get on it. See, I have really sensitive skin, and so when I'm spraying stuff, a lot of times I'm not wearing gloves. And if I use anything that I don't know, is not derived from a plant, but synthetic, I can get really irritated easily. And I never have a problem with this stuff. My plants are always really healthy, outdoors and indoors. Pretty universal. Genuinely like it.
So, I'm kind of curious. While trying to work at a bigger grow and trying to get one started on your own, was it a little difficult to kind of do simultaneous side by side? You know, trying to maybe do some of the stuff on a, I minimize some of the stuff on a larger scale you were taking in, you know, to your more personal size grow. Was it harder to kind of transfer some of the stuff over?
Not really. I feel like it was harder to maybe go at the pace I wanted to go. Like I wanted to learn more. I wanted to give more time to my personal grow. I wanted to watch more videos. At the time, I was really listening to Steve from Green Life Productions talk a lot about their process and indoor no-till methods. It's really impressive. They're in Las Vegas, Nevada, and they're on their 29th cycle no-till. Haven't touched it, and trying to learn from them, but at the same time, being in a pattern of having success with the method that I was using with the hydro, the large grow, trying to apply, I guess it would be like a broganics to what I was doing when I really truly wanted to just be as, I guess, regenerative as possible. And that's what I'm trying to do now, learn more about composting, worm composting. I've got a compost pile going in my yard. It's got some worms, but not enough. And then wanting a worm bin indoors, something clean, something that I know all of my scraps from my juices can go into indoors. Well, majority, not everything, but majority. And having fabric beds. That's the next step. No more pots, no more recycling the soil. A lot of work.
It's awesome that you're headed in that direction, though. It's more sustainable. I think a lot of people, myself included, take the long way around and come back to it for one reason or another. I was asking the question the other night of another guest, uh, basically again a regenerative farmer, and I was like, so which would you kind of suggest right off the bat? Would you actually suggest organics, the simplicity of organics right off the bat? Because it can be, as I said in the beginning there, a quite deep rabbit hole. And I think at some point you watch some of these shows, all good-hearted, some of these folks, these new growers in the beginning, watching some of the subject matter and hearing some of the large words are like, maybe cannabis is a little bit difficult, when it's really not that difficult. I think some of the terminology and the depth that you can get into in organics could be a little bit off-putting for some when that I think that's next level stuff, you know what I mean? But again, I propose the question to him, which would would you offer the simplicity of cocoa, the easy 1, 2, 3, or would you start them off on their organics journey too? And I'll tell you this though, and looking back, I don't necessarily have any regrets because doing it as long as I have, I'm enjoying a new door being opened. Kind of refiring the passion a little bit. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So in that aspect, I guess I'm a little grateful it came later for me.
Okay, that's cool. That's good to hear. Personally, I guess I would ask them what their end goal is. And if they answered, well, I really want a lot of weed. If you want a lot of weed, I'd start you off 1, 2, 3. And I would probably recommend a few people for you to follow that are very successfully having incredible yields under very sufficient modest lights that aren't an arm and a leg. It's very attainable to do if you put the time in and put the effort in. And yet I'm sure a lot of growers get messages from people that want help and have no idea where to start, and really just want you to kind of lay it out for them step by step. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, do this. And it's really hard for a grower to do because I don't think many of us had that. We all kind of fell into it one way or the other in so many different ways. And I think it would be difficult for you to just start telling someone what to do, especially when yeah, what's the most objective way to say this? Especially when You don't know that person, and they're, just messaging you. It's different if a family member or a friend comes to you. And even then, I know plenty of growers who will stand up and swear up and down that they won't help another soul because they've been screwed over so many times, that they've helped so many people. I personally haven't been screwed over, but I do know what it's like to put a lot of work and effort into something, that you will thinking that you are both on the same page with whoever you're helping, whether you're growing for someone, whether you're helping someone set up for the first time, whether you've got an investor who wants you to run their operation, or whatever. And at the end of it, you end up going your separate ways because you didn't see eye to eye, because communication wasn't there, or because the person starting out, just was afraid to be completely honest about their motives from the beginning, because maybe then the grower might not have helped them. That might have been oh, sorry.
Good advice. Good advice.
It's just
So,
know who you're helping and know why they want the help. And for the most part, somebody who really wants help will just ask the right questions, and you'll know how to answer them. If somebody says, teach me how to grow, okay, here's some books, here's some websites, start there. Let me know when you have another question, specific question, and I'll answer it. Let me know how I can help.
So where were some of the places that you looked when you started?
Ooh, books. The first thing I read was the Grow Bible, and I Greg Green. God, I hope I said that right. I don't have my books. But that was the first one. And then actually I got a magazine from a girl at the local grocery store. It's now a Grow Generation, but before it was Grow Generation, it was Superior Grow Store, I think is what it was called. And this awesome chick, she was my first introduction to someone who was able to give me some real insight. She gave me this magazine page, and it just had I don't know, a how to of growing in a very small space. At the time, I just had a 2x4 tent. That was what I started with. I didn't know anything about any ventilation, any soil, anything. I was like, I know I don't really want to use any synthetic nutrients. I didn't really have a good reason why. She used to tell me, she's like, so you just want to starve your plants? Like, no, I just don't want to buy any of the nutrients. And that was just what I said. I was kind of ignorant, but I knew I didn't want to use the nutrients. I'll still stick by that because it led me to where I am today. I knew I didn't want to put any, sorry, shouldn't have hit that. It was just, she gave me the layout of how to mix your own soil. And once I started mixing my own soil, I came across a Instagram post on plants because it was related to soil and things I had been looking at. The algorithm does that. And it was that Mountain Organics Botanicals. And this was in 2016, 2017. And they had a website, and their website was really helpful. So I used that a lot as a reference because it was about really simple soil recipes, things that were really attainable. It wasn't, a 12-part mix, or, it was just, it was like 4 things. It was peat moss, cocoa, potting soil, and pumice. That was it. It was really simple. And then it talked about using compost and using a little bit of biochar. Oh, I hope I said that right. And a little bit of I think rock dust at one point, a few other things that were just kind of experimented with. But the reason I used that as a reference was because on the Mountain Organic Botanicals website was they had a 100-gallon pot that was 10 years old, and it had been cycled through at least a dozen runs, plus other fruits like tomatoes, basils, a bunch of other herbs were growing in that pot. It was a whole living little ecosystem in this 100-gallon pot. And I was like, that's so cool. And it was in a basement. I thought, okay, if he can do that, I can do that. Not there yet. uh, but that was kind of where the inspiration started. And so from there, it was just Google how to mix soil, what do my plants like to eat, and then I came into things like molasses. And a dispensary was helpful at the time because I got to talk to some growers. A lot of times we'd get growers that would come in that were in between harvests, and they would need a couple ounces for a patient. They would, be getting for someone else, but they would let me talk to them about what to do, what to buy. And some had some very interesting methods, and some were really old school, had been growing since the 60s. And that was really cool to talk to them. And then there were, guys who thought they knew everything and were trying to tell me when to feed my plants, how much, telling me to get heavy D this and heavy D that. And I remember thinking, no, I know what that stuff is. I don't want that. I don't want that. And now I think my biggest references are still books and Instagram. Books like Teaming with Microbes is one that I'm rereading again. And the no-till farmer, I think it's called, by the Rev, and his methods with mixing soils and teas and doing spikes in the soil for different amendments. I kind of did that the last couple of runs, played around with, putting my soil together and then putting spikes in, which are just little holes, and then you put your amendments in when needed, depending on where you're at the run. And I didn't quite care for that. I really just want to find a way to build a soil system. I think that's the end goal right now. So any information will probably be people in the community. Honestly, they're the best resources because they're actually doing it. It's not just here's a book, read it, good luck. It's here's a person, you see what they're doing. They're open about their practices. They're open to helping, depending on who they are. And the community is probably my best resource right now, mostly on Instagram.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good information out there. I definitely kind of tell everybody to kind of take it in and see where the dots line up with you and make your own kind of game plan, run with the truths that you see.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get mixed up with, everybody's methods. But, if you watch enough that stuff, you will see, the basics kind of line up and, what to do. Easier to make your own playlist, I think.
It is, especially if you can tune it into your lifestyle. Me being a mom is different than someone who doesn't have any kids. My best time to be with my plants are between, 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. or between, once they're asleep, so 9 p.m. and after, or a little break in the middle of the day if I need to do something when the lights are off. If I can usually get a break. Or having my 8-year-old just ask questions about it. When he was younger, he liked to do the moisture reading with me in the soil, and he'd have like a little sheet and he'd go through and read them. Now that he's getting a little older and his friends come and knock at the door and they want to play. He's off doing his own thing. But every once in a while he comes back around to help, especially now that we're doing the outdoor gardening. It's good.
I think horticulture should have been taught to all of us early on. It'd have been more beneficial. And as we kind of talked about a little bit, man, it does kind of teach us a lot about ourselves as we learn more about the plant, the soil. It kind of cultivating the plant is cultivating our personality as well. Uh, I've seen it across the board, you know, it how well it can enrich people's lives. It's small little doors like we've talked about, organics, pest infestation, little things like that just kind of lead to little things. And organics moreover though seems to cultivate the soul more than any of the above so far though.
Agreed. 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 I definitely wish that it had been taught in school. I was pretty lucky that I had I still had my grandpa influence that, we save seeds, eat real food, even though I didn't grow up with healthy habits. And then once I had my son and just wanting to have a more healthy lifestyle, because I'm not the person I was before I tried cannabis. Like I kind of hate to admit this, but at the same time, that's what growth is you admit who you were. Because if you can't admit who you were, how the heck can you ever change it, right? How can you ever address it? Otherwise, it's not there. But I was like the type of person where if I went into an apartment complex, I was like a Karen. Like if I smelled weed, I might call the cops just because I smelt it. And this was in like 2000, I don't know, 9, 2008, 2010. I was also overweight and a lot of other things, just unhappy in a lot of ways. I don't know. And I had the huge misconception that it really was something to be afraid of. I really did. That still blows my mind sometimes that's how people knew me, or a version that there's a version of me like that. And now becoming this mom who has a vape pen in her diaper bag. I don't know. It's it's awesome to be here because I feel more myself, and I feel more accepting of the fact that I can be myself and I don't have to. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. No worries. That's something I do hear a lot about though. More so when I, ask about that first experience, you know, uh what was it, that made you kind of keep going? And a lot of times I hear that's one of the most main things that I hear is it made me feel myself, made me feel
Yeah,
more normal.
I did. I felt like I hadn't felt like this side of my personality since grade school or younger, or middle school maybe. That I could finally kind of relax and I didn't really have to be on guard from other people's perceptions of me, because I feel like that's something I struggled with a lot, was worrying about just being accepted, being sure I was presentable in any way, shape, or form. That was something that always weighed heavily on my mind growing up. And the smoking kind of took that away and just kind of let me be like, okay, whatever. Kind of a much more carefree attitude. And I like that. I don't have to try with that. I can just be.
Right now. So kind of switching back to the cultivation side of things. Uh, Tell us about that first run, your first run. You talked about that ballast you could hardly carry there. What size pots?
Oh no, that
What
wasn't
was
even
the
my first
Russ's
run. Oh
strain?
my God. My first run, I didn't even have the ballast yet. My first run was under a T5 from start to finish. It was and T5 and like a 5-gallon pot, I think. And the same soil the whole 6 weeks. So I did a 6-week veg, I think. And I actually messed up and um, chopped it at like week 6 in flower. Way, way too early. The strain was cherry pie. And I remember just feeling really proud and really excited. I remember not having to do too much. I would just reapply soil and just water it. It was just water. That was all it was. It was just water every like 2 days because it was a T5. How much could the plant do with that? Not much. I didn't know that at the time. And I got a whopping 12 grams on that first run, that one plant. And the strain was Orange Kush. And it smelled really good, and it was way sparklier than anything I had seen in the dispensary to me. I'm sure it wasn't, but to me, it was just like, wow, I did this. I did this. I can grow my own weed. If I can grow my own weed, lose this weight. Because at the time I had just lost a bunch of weight too. I was at my lowest weight that I had been in since high school or middle school. So at the time of getting to reconnect with this self, I was also getting back to that same body size, which I hadn't been in years. So and even smaller and in better shape because I was strong. I was really fit. I had a lot of endurance. It felt good. Um, and I remember just feeling really prideful and ready to do it again and ready to keep going and keep growing and keep growing. And uh, I didn't start actually really trying to, I don't want to say apply myself, but it sounds bad, but like really, really try to get a really good yield and more uniform plant, start going on YouTube. I started going on YouTube a lot and looking at videos on how to increase your yield, what to do in week 2 of veg, what to do in week 3, when to transplant and upgrade pots. Started just YouTubing, Googling any question I had and spending time watching videos and getting better at shaping a plant, getting better at getting in tune with deficiencies. My God, I can't tell you how many times I messed up and over fertilized the soil once I started messing around with guanos and alfalfa meals, um, any kind of amendment I could add as I started getting into that by the second and third run. Never really so much with compost, but I overdid it with the guanos quite a few times and messed up and completely basically burned my plants and not knowing what I was doing or attracting gnats because I had too much guano and I didn't know at the time how to do any IPM methods because I was just doing this in the tent and not talking to anybody about it. So my IPM was just taking my plants out of the space and cleaning the tent, which at the time made sense. But by the second run, learned better. Just a lot of mess ups as far as cultivation. I feel like I messed up a lot. And I feel like there's still so much more to mess up on and so much more to try with. Like I'm really apprehensive about doing these indoor beds because it's a lot of soil. It's a lot to keep going. I feel like I want to make sure I know everything about everything that I can know about sustaining soil in beds like that, because these beds are 3 by 4, and I have 4 of them coming. I think that's what they are. They're 3 by 3. It's grassroots fabric pots. So getting the soil in them, and just not messing it up, because all the times I did mess up. I don't think I would now. I kind of know what I'm doing now. Just still want to learn. I want to make sure I know exactly what I'm doing. We'll get there.
I'm kind of a hands-on person myself. I love to, for me, it's the best way to learn. And it's
Right.
learning from my mistakes.
Right.
They're the ones you remember the best anyway. Sometimes the easy knowledge kind of can come and go, but those lessons are there forever.
You really are. You really are. And I get to experience that again as a mom, just as watching my kids grow up, watching them make mistakes, letting them make mistakes. My son wanted to keep a male plant that I had. I was hesitant about sharing it online, just because I get in my head. But I had a male pop up, and I told him, I was like, "Oh, we got to toss this one." He was like, "Can I keep it?" And he put it in his room, and I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Because you just killing him because he's a boy." Because he's, I don't know, he just wanted to save the plant. So he kept it in his room, and watching him take care of it, and watching him forget to water it, and trying to remind him but not nag him, because it's not mine, it's his. If I'm on him all the time, is he gonna remember the fun experience of growing that? No, he's gonna remember mom in his ear the whole time. Did you water your plant? Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? Did you do that? Whereas if he just comes with me to the garden and he sees me, and I ask him, "How's your plant doing?" Gotta water it. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. Okay, we'll do this. But at the same time, he did forget to water it for an extended period of time, and it died, and he was very upset. So he's watching my garden for a new male to try again. So it's cool to see those habits kind of get passed on.
That's super awesome. Coming from a more conservative side, the first half of your life, I appreciate the fact that you're not necessarily, shunning it to your son, these days, more or less encouraging it. There's so many great things that come from cannabis. For one, it offers a good quality of life, but it teaches a lot of lessons that can be applied in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's necessary at this point. I don't know if in Canada, if it's how easy and convenient it is to get what I would call a medible, or like a gummy. But here in Michigan, it's very easy, very convenient. And in my city recently, I don't know if it was yesterday, the day before, sometime this week, in a school about, I don't know, 5 miles from my house, a fifth grader brought a gummy to school, one gummy, and shared it with another fifth grader. Both experienced really paranoid symptoms, elevated heart rate. They ended up going to the hospital and found this out. And there was a lot of confusion as to, one, how the kid got it, two, how the kid knew and did it, and in the sense of thinking that it was going to be a good time, because part of why I like to bring this around my kid is so I can tell him, hey, this is medicine. This isn't for kids. This isn't like candy. This is like it's like putting on what do you call them? Kaleidoscope glasses or something. Like that's what I try to explain to him. Like this isn't for fun. This not kaleidoscope glasses. What did I say? I said, for you at your age, because you're a child, this will make you feel dizzy. This will make you feel like maybe you're on a boat. It won't do anything for you. Like when you see mom take a gummy and then, we do a puzzle or we read or we just hang out on the floor, or we go outside or do something. It isn't like that. Not for you. Your brain's still growing. Your brain's still changing. Your brain's still developing. And it won't respond to these cannabinoids and this medicine like my brain does. Same thing with alcohol, I tell them. It's different. And I gotta trust that he understands that. Because to see on the news and in a bunch of social media posts, a school very close to me had 2 kids hospitalized because they brought a gummy. In my gut, that tells me that the kids probably knew that the parents had cannabis products and medibles, but they were clearly being sneaky. So there's some kind of miscommunication there. And I was recently seeing a poll on, I think it's Cannabis Chem. She did a poll on what age people started first consuming. And based on that age, it gave us our target audience of cannabis education, and it was 12 to 14. That age is where cannabis education should start because of the age most people tried it. And if we're targeting people that have already tried it, it's not that there's no room for education there, it's just not going to leave as much of an impact to somebody who's already experienced it, whether they had super paranoid effects or had, great effects. I tried to talk to a woman at my gym the other day, and this is a grown woman, this isn't even a child, about Rick Simpson oil. Her and I were talking because she was having horrible pain in her knee, and I had watched this awesome guy on Instagram heal from an ACL surgery using just RSO and smoke, no opioids. And so I was trying to talk to her about it, and she said that because she got high one time from an edible and had a horrible experience, she won't try anything with THC. And she was in recovery for opioids. But because of that one experience, she was just like, no, no, no. And even if I tried to tell her, you don't have the same psychosis with this oil because of the amount of terpenes like you do with a THC brownie, it didn't make sense to her because she had already had that experience. So if we're talking to kids that haven't had an experience, their minds are just much more open to trusting, the actual education on the medicine and how it should be consumed, when it should be consumed, how it's used, what it's used for, and what it's not used for. That's just my 2 cents.
It's a good 2 cents as well. As far as my stance on cannabis is very medical. I've seen so many people over the years struggle with opiate and drug addiction, and I would much rather see anybody use cannabis in place. It's not the end all. I'll be the first one to admit, it's an amazing plant. It has a lot of healing powers, does a lot, but it solve everything. Hell no. Hell no. Sometimes you do need, but it can get people back on the right path. And I've talked a lot about that through RSO, FICO, and cultivation. I would like to see something like that set up at some point, kind of a rehab through cannabis and cultivation. Now, I think it has to be both though, because as you come off them opiates and pills and learn to come clean, I think you need to rewire a little bit, but more so you should learn to sustain yourself with future medicine if you choose B. But as we were talking about earlier, though, even if it's hemp or cannabis, through
Hmm.
cultivation, learning to cultivate that plant, you kind of learn to more about yourself. You're
Yeah,
starting over, you're cultivating yourself as you're cultivating the plant. And I think it would
1000%.
be a awesome way for recovering addicts to kind of, recenter themselves and take off in life on a good start. So I don't know.
Agreed. I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I feel like, I mean, I relate to you saying that just because I felt that way when I was just starting to smoke again and garden again. I felt like like I said, like I was myself, and I was getting back in touch with this self that didn't have to deal with a lot of problems or issues, and she just got to be herself and just go to school and do what she needed to do. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think that there's this big movement of people healing through their traumas from when they were younger and being comfortable addressing them when generations before us weren't. Uh, Cannabis is playing a huge role in helping that, a huge role. And I I see it just consistently moving even more forward in a positive, like cannabis in general, and more people being open to talking about their use with it, whether they're moms, dads, teachers, growers, CEOs, doctors, uh, guy next door, the girl next door, whoever they are, versus, seeing it as some character from that 70s show in their basement or something like that. It's not so stereotypical anymore. And uh, it's good to see. I think it's good to see.
So on your page there, it says holistic wellness. Did that come with cannabis as well, or did a holistic kind of lifestyle come before cannabis, but was well adapted?
I think it came after. Yeah, it definitely came after. I had so I had this I've had this huge journey with food my whole life. I feel that food is definitely the most abused drug in in society. Period. Period. Whether it's by restriction or overconsumption or binging or sweets or fried or whatever it is, food triggers mood big time. And it wasn't until I started smoking that I actually started having some real discipline with what I consumed. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the cannabis, maybe it's not. Maybe it was because the cannabis opened my mind to reading other books and being open to just the fact that I could change and I could change my habits, which I think when you're overweight for most of your life and you just have these bad habits, because that's what it is to eat fast food every day. It's a bad habit. That's what it is to eat food out of a can, 2 or 3 times a day, or 3 servings in a row. It's a bad habit. It's how you, rapidly gain weight and get bad skin and go into depression, have a hard time sleeping. You don't feel good. You're just kind of in survival mode. But it's kind of the standard American diet sometimes. So it's it's not like you're set up for success in the states here. You really aren't when it comes to food. And even if you do cook for yourself, the typical foods people cook are not the most beneficial to you nowadays. It's all about convenience and taste versus fuel and nutrition because it's what it is. But I think, like I said, it's just very abused, whether it's your typical sweets or just the habit of when you eat and when you don't. Gives people a lot of control, gives yourself a lot of control. And I felt that I gave in to every craving I had unless I did some sort of radical diet or slim fast or something Tide Bow or some juice cleanse, like, and it wasn't juice, it would be like cranberry juice for 3 days. It was just all unhealthy. And again, this is all before cannabis, but I was thinking I was doing normal things, and I wasn't. And then I've become someone who started smoking, not every day. Now I smoke every day, but then I'd smoke maybe every other day at night, after my son was asleep. Always get the munchies, always. And I started noticing that if I ate things that were, out of a bag, like crackers, chips, munchies like that, felt really crappy the next day. I literally would call it like a weed hangover because I would feel really groggy because I didn't sleep well because of all the food I ate. You don't when you eat a bunch of food late at night and then you go right to sleep, if you don't give yourself about an hour in between to digest the food, it's hard to go into a deep sleep. So you wake up not as well rested. You wake up kind of foggy. And so I started making changes and doing things like apples and peanut butter, or bananas and chocolate chips, things like that instead. And I would get the munchies, and I got that idea because it's like, okay, well, if I can change and smoke this, if I can change and eat better too, I can do these little things. And that's just me personally. That was just what I figured. And it came more and more, and to the point where I went vegan in 2016. And I completely cut out meat. I completely cut out dairy. It was a huge, huge change, like huge change, especially for my family. Nobody was vegetarian, pescatarian, and we're a big Mexican family. Nobody did not eat meat. Was all there was to eat: meat, beans, rice, and the beans had lard in them, and the rice had lard in them, and it's like all animal products. And the first 2 years trying to adjust to that was so difficult, and I'm so glad I had cannabis to kind of get me through that. And at the same time, I'm not vegan now, so that's been interesting and fun. And it's not because I don't love animals. Um, it's because I wasn't eating veganism in a sustainable way after a while. It's not sustainable to get a bunch of tropical fruit constantly to Michigan all year round. It's just not. It's not sustainable to eat quinoa every day. It's just not. And, the same thing can be said for steak or chicken or eggs. Like, it's not sustainable to eat those things every meal every day. It's not. Everything in balance. And now I feel like that's where I'm at with my growing and my consumption, because there was a time where I feel like my weed consumption far outweighed how much I was growing. I mean, I was just smoking everything, trying to get as high as I could all the time. When I started helping with the bigger operation, that's when there was always so much weed. Always. When you work with an operation that big, it's just always there. And extractions too. It's great experience. And I think that's when the overindulgence got out of balance, and the same thing with being vegan. And then when I got pregnant with my second son, I, I wasn't eating enough, and I wasn't eating properly. But at the same time, I was helping to manage this big grow space throughout my pregnancy. I was doing my own grow at the time, and I was still managing homeschooling and cooking for my son. It was just really hard to sustain myself. I think it was like the last month of my pregnancy, I was just ready to eat some fish. I think that's how it started. A fish. Couldn't eat much of it, and slowly it all just kind of started working its way back, and I feel better. I don't eat meat every day, but I definitely feel better not being vegan anymore. But there's still days where I do eat vegan. I just don't call it that. I'm not eating meat or dairy that day. And then also, just a side note, throughout my pregnancy, I also was consuming cannabis throughout that, because that got me through the nausea, the sleepless nights. The nausea was probably the main thing, and just the stress. It's just pregnancy. There's not a lot of female growers to talk to about being pregnant while managing a grow, or your own grow, and then helping out with other grows, and just the dynamics that all that comes with. And I think now, thinking back on it, I was under a lot of stress during that time. But thank God for cannabis.
So with that being said, would you, suggest it to other mothers that have, that question before them, should I quit or should I not quit? I understand moderation is key, but to eliminate all,
Well,
all in all.
I talked to my doctor about it, because I was really open with her about my cannabis use throughout my pregnancy. The hospital that I went to doesn't test for cannabis, so it wasn't something I was very thankful that I wouldn't have to worry about, CPS or anything like that, because not all states operate like that. So there are plenty of mothers in other states that, if the hospital tests and they test positive for THC during their pregnancy, I don't know what the actions are that the hospital will take. So I guess that would be my main priority, is what are your hospital's policies when it comes to testing. That's always key, because it's different than the law hospital policy. And be open with your doctor. And if you're not open with your doctor, get a different doctor. If you can, get a doctor that you can talk to. Because I found it beneficial throughout my pregnancy. I didn't see where it hindered me or my child. He was born beautiful and healthy, with the exception of when he was delivered. Something that happened with the cord, and it tore instead of being cut. So that's his blood flow, that's his oxygen that was immediately taken away, and he took in a bunch of amniotic fluid and all the membrane on him before it was cleaned off. So he got sick. So he spent the first week in intensive care with fighting off pneumonia and healing a little tiny hole in his lung. Because when he did that, it happened so fast. That just happened. And I remember that week I didn't leave the hospital, and I didn't consume. That was my first time not consuming cannabis, and it was the worst week ever, because your hormones are, I don't think there's any way to describe the kind of hormones that you go through immediately postpartum having a baby. It's really like it's a really big mental toll. It looks pretty online and there's lots of pictures, but there's a huge mental toll. I think for dads too, if they're a part of the whole experience and they watch their wives go through it, that first couple of weeks right after having the baby is just, it's a huge shock. This thing that was inside of you was just here, and not having cannabis that week was really hard, and I was in a lot of pain postpartum physically, and I didn't want any opioids, so that was really hard. And I remember my son's dad sneaking the pen into the hospital, and I remember trying to hit it and coughing and being in so much pain that I was scared to smoke. So then I had a good friend get me some RSO, and once I got home, it was really small amounts. I'm talking like bean size, little like, little pinto bean size amounts. And it was a good better recovery, a much better recovery. And I would, if you're already consuming cannabis and you get pregnant, the biggest concern my doctor had was the combustion from the lighter, and she said that there wasn't any way to know if my meds were clean. And when I told her I grew and showed her pictures of my garden, she didn't really know what to say except okay. And that felt really good. That felt really good.
Well, this subject matter kind of hits home a little bit, to be honest with you, and I appreciate you, telling me your side of the story because um I'm gonna be a grandpa on Tuesday, and
No
my
way.
oldest daughter has posed this. We've struggled through this. She's a cannabis user,
Okay.
and came to me, wanted my advice early on about cannabis and pregnancy. Like, I'm not the best source here. You know what I mean? But I think,
Yeah.
out of all options, I think, again, in moderation, like I said, it's a good stress reliever. And I kind of took that with a lot of optimism, as I'm sure it's not necessarily the best subject. But I really feel she kind of wanted to consume a little bit, but again, some shame there. Again, worried about the hospital. The testing from the hospital was another big scare as well. And the future, breastfeeding with cannabis as well is a
Oh
concern
yeah.
with her. But
I can tell you
see,
from personal experience. I'm still nursing my son, and he's 14 months now, 15 months now, and I have consumed cannabis every day, just about every day since I've been home. Maybe there's been a few times where I've gone without here and there, but every day, and there hasn't been anything abnormal or out of the ordinary, unhealthy. If anything, he's very alert. He's ahead in his motor skills. He's very coordinated, very strong. He very much takes after his brother. He's very observant, picks up things quickly, figures things out quickly, has big personality. I can't see any difference in him. There's nothing that you would look at him and go, oh, well, your mom smoked weed while she was pregnant with you. There's just not. There's nothing there like that. And a lot of studies that I've read, one study that I've read, the main one I saw from, there's a great Instagram called Cannabis and Parenthood, at Cannabis and Parenthood. And she posts a lot of studies, both pro and against cannabis. You can tell when there's bias in the articles that are written against cannabis use during pregnancy or just cannabis use in general. And you can tell when the articles are written from a medical standpoint and they are clinical studies or clinical studies trying to be performed. That was my best resource. And just the fact that that mom also shared her experiences as a cannabis using mom. I have there's a lot of moms on there that I see that use cannabis and breastfeed, that use cannabis throughout their pregnancy, and that it's not harmful. If our endocannabinoid system, makes cannabinoids, and that's what we're getting when we ingest this plant, we're not putting some altering chemical in our body. We're just giving our body exactly what it needs. It's really important when you're pregnant.
I think it would have helped. Oh, sorry. Oh, please finish. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're okay. I was just gonna say, I think it helped me just stay more in tune with myself throughout my pregnancy, because when you're pregnant, everything changes. Your whole body isn't yours anymore, and you become this. You kind of become an object. You really do. You're this pregnant woman. You just are, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's your life before is kind of gone. It's kind of gone. So I don't know, having something like cannabis and being able to smoke, hit my bong, felt like I was still just me. You know, for some women, it's a glass of wine. They say, "Oh, I can't wait till I'm done being pregnant. I can have a glass of wine again." You know, I never had that because I smoked and I was able to keep that, and I never felt like I had to complain or felt like I was missing out on that. I feel like that was a huge benefit. I think there's a lot of moms that would very openly agree with that if there still wasn't a possibility that someone they knew wouldn't shame them. Because even if you have people in your corner that say, yeah, that's great, there's still a lot more people out there that would love to project onto you and tell you what you're doing wrong.
Very sad too. You know, well, I don't know where to start. Jump in right where we're at to go back a little bit.
You can
Um,
go back, it's okay.
well, I really believe, when it kind of relating back to her, that because she's dealt with anxiety, her whole life, and that was one of the reasons why she consumed cannabis. And throughout this whole pregnancy, anxiety has been back for sure. And I wish at some point, she would have been able to consume instead of because I've as again as somebody that's huge against pharmaceuticals, I've always been against anxiety medicines and stuff like that, trying to find other ways to cope with it. And this has been tough for her, and at some point I wish that somebody besides myself would have been like, hey, once in a while, you need to calm
Yeah,
down, if anything, for the
for,
baby's sake.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the baby's sake, for your sake. I mean, that's the hardest part sometimes. And when you're a pregnant mom, as much as people put you on a pedestal for being the pregnant mom, there's this catch 22 of but the baby, but the baby, but the baby. So there's the one side of don't smoke, the baby, and then there's the other side of, well, okay, smoke, it's still good for you, and if it's good for you, then it's good for the baby. Okay, so um, I feel like I definitely downplayed my consumption a lot throughout my pregnancy, but if I'm being completely honest, it wasn't too different than what it is now. Um, it might have been a little less for a while, and then there was a point where while I was pregnant, my ovary actually twisted on itself inside, and that was incredibly painful. So I had to have surgery while I was pregnant, and man, they pushed opioids while I was in there, big time, big time, big time. And I remember refusing. I said no 8 times. 8 times I had to say no to oxy and what's the other one? Morphine. 8 times I had to say no. And I remember at almost the last point, flat out telling them, "Look, I don't consume pharmaceuticals. It's just weed, just weed and edibles. That's it." And I remember the last person that asked me laughed, and she's just like, we have to ask. It's our part of it's just part of how we manage your pain. We just have to manage your pain. And just fix me, just fix me and send me home. I'll manage my pain. And I remember getting home, and because of where they had to go in, it was right around my diaphragm. So anytime I coughed, or anytime I laughed, or anytime I had any sudden movement of my stomach, oh, it was so painful. So I actually went through like a good month where I didn't smoke. I would just have some RSO or I was getting gummies too, or something like that. And that was throughout my pregnancy, and that helped a lot during recovery and just feeling like myself. You know, I think that's what I'll keep coming back to, is just being able to feel like myself and not let the symptoms that come along with pregnancy kind of consume you. Mental symptoms too, because you're right. I wouldn't be surprised if her anxiety was up, and um, it's so many thoughts. It's a baby, so the thoughts that take over your brain, and sometimes it's really hard to quiet those thoughts and the what ifs, especially if they're negative thoughts, you know. And cannabis kind of helps all those thoughts go shh. You know that's not true, and you can agree with that. But yeah, okay, that's not true. I'm gonna be a great mom. I'm doing everything right. I have eaten enough. I have done enough. I'm enough. It's enough. All good. Rather than, stressing or crying or sobbing. That's, that's really hard, especially when you're pregnant.
All right. I'm back. I'm back to where I wanted to be before I backed way up.
Okay.
And the fact that, they would offer you that type of medication, right off the bat, freshly after, birth there,
No, I hadn't had birth. I was still
knowingly.
pregnant. I was,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I was still
Just as
pregnant.
bad,
Yeah.
really. Um, but what I'm kind of getting here though is cannabis is bad, but sending this opiate through your system is somehow okay. Which is, addicted to you. You're putting a newborn through that, a drug that any other time most adults have to be weaned off of and can't properly wean themselves off of because they can't understand the opiate pains from their pains, much less to put an infant through that, even, throughout that person, that before or after birth. That's going to enter the baby system at some point. How can that be okay versus a natural substance? Now, even more said to that is the fact that they want to give that small infant shots as soon as they can. Artificial stuff with side effects
Yeah.
that,
I
can
just
harm
say
the
no to
baby
a
with
lot of
more.
those things too. It's
Yeah.
interesting how the medical system is set up systematically, and how it's become so ingrained and it's so normal. Everything that you just described is very normal, and I don't know. I don't know much about the opioid epidemic. I know it was while I was growing up. It was in the 90s. Was the biggest chunk of it when most people died, and I'd say the most drugs were prescribed into the early 2000s. And I think people got a realization of what was going on by, I'd say, 2010s and 11, 12, etc. And I think only now are we really uh, reprimanding companies and holding doctors and medical facilities accountable and liable, because uh, opioids were just about a dollar. That's all they were. It was just about getting money. It wasn't really about helping people or managing pain. It was about creating lifelong patients. Lifelong patients. That's really what it was. And I believe that it has helped some people manage their pain. And there have been some people that are actively managing their pain with these opioids and high functioning, and that's great for them. And the majority of the people that are on these pain meds, though, are not high functioning, majority. And to try to rehabilitate that into cannabis users, like you were saying, with the rehab and the cultivation, I think would be a really great idea. Much better than probably most of the standard rehabs that people go to right now.
kind of going back to a little bit with, you know, it being in a baby system kind of early on as well. You
Mhm.
know, we
The
don't
opioid or the
necessarily
cannabis?
the cannabis,
Okay.
you know, we're kind of science doctors are trying to, you know, give them shots right off the bat to boost their immune system or whatever. We know cannabis boosts the immune system naturally and supports
Yeah.
other functions. We don't necessarily understand the endocannabinoid system yet. One thing that they're finding out for sure as we age, it has different functions. As we get older, we tend not to necessarily get as high from it as much. It gets worked in different ways, but who's to say earlier on, say in the infant's life,
Hmm.
that it isn't completely beneficial? They're finding out more so now that patients that are able to get RSO earlier on can, repair brain function to damage areas. So how can they necessarily, again, a bad
Because
thing? Oh,
I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think the way it's I think it can correlate or mirror the same way that a lot of people are taught, simply this is a drug, this is bad, follow these rules, do ABC. It becomes ingrained, and they teach their kids, and they repeat those behaviors even subconsciously in everyday lives. Even the way we drive, we follow the rules. It's just ingrained in our behavior. So I think that when it comes to changing the rules in the medical system, it's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of education, and it's going to take probably some mistakes and some realization. Um, who knows? Who knows what? I feel like if we as a community, as a society, had never been introduced to Charlotte's story, that CBD wouldn't have made the connection that it did to so many people in hemp. It wouldn't have touched so many people and opened so many people's eyes. And it was a real shame that the highlight of that was that she needed her medicine, and they were trying to get different states legal approval. They were trying to go against the rules because it was considered bad. And then eventually their farm and their whole story was what it's really inspiring. Charlotte's story, Charlotte's strain, um, Charlotte's Web is the strain. But that was just an example of how medically beneficial it is, yet how it was illegal. I shouldn't put quotes, but it was technically illegal. And even seeing some parents in states now trying to get their kids medicine like that, and it blows my mind. It blows my mind, and I wish it would change a lot faster. And I think, as far as like the hospitals go, you just got to find the right one. I was lucky in the hospital that I was at with the cannabis use, and that they did not push back on my declines for the I think it was 6 different shots that my son would have gotten, including a vitamin K shot, and we declined on all of those, and declined on the ointment in the eyes. There were a few other things that they wanted to give him that we declined on that head. When I was asking the nurse about them, even she couldn't really tell me what they were for. She just said, "Oh, it's just what we do, honey. It's not bad. Um, it's just it wasn't good enough a reason for me to just be like, yeah, okay, go ahead and do it." And I was lucky that there wasn't a lot of pushback on that, or I wasn't questioned on why I wasn't doing these things for my kid. That the hospital that I was at was very okay with my choice. Very okay with my choices. I think it's all about the hospital and their policies and the image that they're trying to present to the world. Because I mean, the hospitals really are about saving lives, but at the end of the day, they're businesses. They make money. And the area area that they're in depends on who they appease to. For instance, I gave birth at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, a city in Michigan that is home of, 420 hash bash protest. It's now more like a little block party festival, but used to be a protest. The city's a little different. Weed is making that city so much money, it's ridiculous. Ann Arbor, anyway. As well as the U of M. The U of M makes the city a lot of money. You always follow the money.
So yeah, that makes me a little, I don't know. Well, I can understand Ann Arbor, Michigan, University of Michigan, that area being a little more cannabis friendly.
It was a little
But-
different. It was a little different. I don't know how it would be at other hospitals. I feel privileged in the experience that I had, for sure. Very privileged.
She chose one in the Flint area. Supposed to be one of the better ones for child pediatrics there. So hopefully, well, she, like I said, she did give up cannabis, and I'm going to encourage her. And thank you for your honesty, by the way, on the subject, because I'm going to tell her to go back and watch this for an honest, opinion on the subject, because I think, again, she's was scared to ask, too many negative opinions, too many people to look down their nose. And it's sad that cannabis is still like that, like I kind of said in the beginning, the pandemic opened up a lot of things for us. And that was one of the things, cannabis being, essential, in a medicine, kind of let those of us caregivers, people who consume cannabis, was like, yeah, told you so. We got vindicated a little bit, but still, there's a lot of people that do kind of look down their nose at cannabis users. We haven't won the fight yet.
No, I think it's still a long uphill battle. And I think that with the way that the commercial industry is changing things and the accessibility of recreational weed, it's changing even more and even faster. And I feel like it's constantly being remolded. Everything from, just your typical edibles to spa, high-end spa, facial products and hair care products. Even in CVS now, I'm seeing hemp lotions and face creams and hemp this and hemp that, and I'm just like, wow. But hemp is always the last ingredient on the list, and I think to myself, so you're not paying for any hemp, you're paying for the first 5 ingredients on that bottle. I promise you, that's the majority of what you pay for, is the first 5 ingredients in skincare bottles. That's what my other business was. Hi Gorgeous. It's Hello Gorgeous is the aesthetics, my aesthetics skincare. I studied skincare extensively before I was a grower. All things beauty, all things makeup, all things skin and health of skin, layers to the skin, diseases of the skin, products of the skin, everything.
Pretty well diversified there in everything you do. Pretty damn cool. So was cannabis, did that come before or after cannabis? And I guess the next question would be, was it an easy slide into? Was cannabis something you were like, aha, again, this is another application that I didn't see coming with cannabis, with skincare kind of applications?
Skincare, I felt like was always kind of something that I was into. My mom, before she got into corporate America, she was a nail tech for years and just really took pride in her appearance and beauty. And I picked up on that from a young age and wanted to be like my mom and take pride in my looks and skin and makeup, and was just something that I always really liked. And right after high school, I didn't go to college. I went to aesthetic school, to learn how to shape eyebrows, to, the steaming facials and exfoliate the skin, and full body treatments, massage. I liked taking care of people and helping people feel really good. There's something really rewarding about having someone say, "Oh my gosh, I feel so good. I feel so good. It's perfect. Thank you." Having that appreciation for something you physically put care into, or being able to see where someone's needs are and being able to bring out the best features of them. That's what felt good. Doing someone's makeup and being able to highlight all their best features and having them really like what they see was so rewarding and nurturing and fun. And cannabis came once I actually started consuming and I started growing, and I realized, I don't know, I kind of went through this period of feeling that the beauty industry was really superficial, that it was just a money making industry, that I needed to kind of refigure out what I wanted to do. Because at the time I was working for a skincare company that was very chemical based, glycolics and acids, and it just was a little. It was not what my skincare routine now. Now I make all my own skincare, and that feels really good. A lot of it, two of the things I infuse, basically an RSO that I make into them. One of them is like a facial serum, and it helps a lot with cuts and scrapes and burns. My son fell at hockey, and his whole hand was all like busted. I wish I had taken pictures. His whole hand was all bloody and like burned. And I put I use it on my face as a serum, but I put it on his cuts and I wrapped it with gauze and we left it overnight. And the next day, it was like 40% back healed with the light pink flesh back all over his old wounds. No scabbing, no pussing, no nothing. It looked really good. And I used that for about 5 more days. And within a week, all his gashes and cuts from the ice and the burns were like completely healed. Couldn't tell anything had happened there. So that feels really good. And I like making stuff like that now versus, spending $100 on a product because someone that I admired and influenced made the recommendation for me to purchase it. It's just really different now. And I'm trying to incorporate cannabis and aesthetics now, trying to figure out how to incorporate them in education wise, because smoking really dries out your skin. It just does. You got to stay hydrated. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. I think those songs have caught up to me. Almost 2. Wow.
As I said, it does go quick. How are we doing? Are we past time? Is it getting late? How are we doing that time?
It's definitely past the night when I'm usually awake, and I am probably going to get to the point where I'm going to start rambling. I think pretty tired and ready to hit the hay.
Right on. Well, again, it was nice to getting to know you. I'm sure everybody that was watching had a great time getting to know you as well. Is there a place where they can find your skincare products, or get in touch with you if they have any questions?
I'm not currently selling anything right now, but I would love to help anybody get started on making their own, or any recommendations. My social media is the best way to get at me. It's at Fit Growing Goddess, at fit_growing_goddess. It's the best way. And I really appreciate you having me on here. This was really fun. And you asked me, I didn't, I knew what to expect based on your chats. I guess I just didn't exactly know how fast it would go, how easy it would be to just chat and talk and have a good conversation and good vibes. So I really thank you for that, because this was a really fun experience. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate that. I can't tell you. Basically, before you go, there's a couple of things I'd like to go over with you. One, I would like to have you back some point and have another one-on-one with you. I feel like we were just getting partly through a great conversation. It's one of the downsides of having such a late show, I guess. But I would be grateful for another shot at having you on and kind of trying to pick up where we left off. But before we go, there's a few aspects of the channel that I'd like to explain to you. First and foremost, there's a few different shows on the channel. Basically, the spotlight that we've done tonight, and then there's the Weed Nerd World, which is a few times a week. Basically, how the Weed Nerd World work is Mondays is a Weed Nerd World, mandatory, no guests every Monday night. You can count on that. I'm trying to work on an earlier show, West Coast Takeover, where that pops off at 11:30 for some of the people that can't stay up till 2 to come join the Weed Nerd World. The other times you'd find a Weed Nerd World is before we got started. I told you that the time slot is open from 11:30 to 4:20. So basically, how I'll finish off the rest of the evening is basically I'll stretch for a minute, go get something to drink, and I'll wind out the rest of the evening with the Weed Nerd World. So now that you've done the spotlight episode, keep that Zoom link invitation. Besides the spotlight invitation, you're always welcome to the Weed Nerd World now. Basically, that's a come as you want to thing. It's only open to past guests. As of tonight, that combination can be anywhere from 638 people. We kind of never know who's coming and going in the Weed Nerd World, which makes it kind of fun. The conversation evolves from growing to mushroom cultivation, sometimes a little conspiracy theory to general health. It goes everywhere. But please know that you're always welcome. That Zoom link will always work. Anytime you want to come hang out, it's always fun to have new faces come hang out and tell us what they're up to, what they're growing, where they're going to be, what they're doing, that kind of good stuff. So please keep it in mind for the future that, I'm welcome.
Okay.
I'm bored. I can't sleep.
I
And I
can't
have
sleep.
a
That would
bowl.
be the main reason. With 2 kids, I'm never bored. But yes, it would be can't sleep.
With that being said, the final thing I would like to get from you, not that I haven't got enough from you this evening, the silly thing I call a soundbite. Basically, it'll be the delay is still terrible tonight. Basically, what I'm looking for is like an old school radio identification kind of thing. My version of it would be, hey, this is Eagle, and I'm on fucking Talking Shit with Eagle, episode 638. You can say whatever you want before or after. At some point, this will be a commercial for your episode. I'm ready anytime you are.
Now?
Oh, yes, please. You're supposed to say it.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. It's late. I'm
Your
not-
version.
Okay.
No
Sorry. Can I
worries.
do it over? Can we start over?
Yes, we're fine. Please. Oh, so far.
So you're saying I just need to say something like, "Hey, it's Ashley, and I'm here talking shit with the Eagle," like something like that.
Episode 638. Yes, ma'am.
Episode 638. Okay.
Anytime you're ready.
Hey, this is Ashley, and I'm excited to be talking some shit with the Eagle at tonight, episode 638.
Thank you so much. That was perfect. And again, thank you for your time. It's the most valuable thing we have. And you gave me a nice chunk of yours, as well as a nice insight into your life and some valuable information I can pass on to somebody I love too. So I'm grateful for all the above. Any last shout outs that you'd like to give before we go?
Just a shout out to everyone and anyone who's watching that has helped me or given me any guidance or insight or support or just any kind words. Thank you. Thanks.
Well, with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in for another great episode, another fun conversation. Hopefully, I'll see you guys here in a few minutes in the Weed Nerd world. If not, thank you for your time. Don't forget to do something nice for somebody. Random acts of kindness do save lives. We are.